If you communicate well in the bedroom, you communicate well in the boardroom, because it's so hard for you to be vulnerable about sex. And once you master that, you feel like you can master communication in every other aspect of your life.
Okay, so before I tell the story, we're going to play Jenga.
Jenga.
This is Natassia Miller, sexologist and founder of Wanderlust.
Usually founders, they're making so many decisions in the workplace that the last thing they want to do is make decisions at home. And that translates into sex. That's something that I experienced myself. I was just like, just be aggressive. Like, I want you to like throw me against the wall and pin me down. One thing that I learned about working in finance was learning how to calling it quit. Quitting early is not failure. It's literally a form of self-preservation for you to move on to more aligned things. It's like quitting a relationship early.
That should be on a t-shirt. That should be on a t-shirt.
That.
I have a lot of founder friends that have gone through divorce, both men and women, as their startups. And I feel like it's so myopic where you have to trade your startup for your relationship.
Well, unfortunately, we live in a very individualistic society. And if you think about what matters at the end when you are in your coffin, it's who's going to show up. What are they going to say about you? When you're at your deathbed, what are you going to reflect on in your life?
What is like your top advice for managing your co-founder relationships?
I think it's having the vulnerable conversations early and frequently. The hard things that you don't want to talk about, you need to make sure that those are spoken.
I think you got it.
I am holding my core.
Not touching. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Would you mind if I told a little story about how I met my wife?
Oh, please do. That's actually my favorite question.
Yes. Okay. So before I tell the story, we're going to play Jenga.
Jenga. Okay.
Which is like my favorite game of all time. Used to play it a lot. Haven't played it in a long time.
I think I've played it once in my life.
All right. So it's epic. I'm going to unbox and try to... Oh, no, there's tape on here. And try to also tell you my story at the same time.
Okay.
So my wife and I actually were best friends and coworkers before we even started dating and got married.
Oh, wait, but that checks.
Yeah?
Because the co-working space, you're seeing each other at their highest energy, doing the best at what they do. I mean, it's when you ask couples what they find most attractive in their partner, like when they do, it's when they see their partners excelling at the things that they like doing best. And work tends to be a place for that. So that's why a lot of affairs also start at work. Anyway, sorry I interrupted.
Slightly scandalous. She was married.
Wow, look at you, Brennan.
So, but we never started dating until she was divorced. But
okay,
it was.
So you kept it PG.
Yeah, we kept it PG, and she was like my best friend. And I worked in finance, and she worked in product.
And Brennan is the friend that his wife told him not to worry about.
Yes, 100%. I actually don't know. It'll be funny. I'm telling this story on the podcast. Yeah, but like my wife and I, we started out like best friends, and I honestly, we both, I don't think realized it, but we were just like very close. And there were like people I was dating at the time. They were like, "What about that? What about that girl?" And I was like, "No, she's just like my best friend," and I'm sure she had like the same effect.
And she's married.
Yes. Well, like, and you know, I was like, man, like someone like that is like super awesome. I'm never going to have that person in my life, but like, I'm glad that she's my friend and basically in essence, I moved to New York, and then like literally a month later, she moved to New York, and then had divorced her husband at that point. And then basically we started dating right after that. And she's a founder too. So she's built a couple companies, but at the time, it was so scandalous because we both, like, she had just like split. I had just like broken up with people too. We were both new to founding. So we were both like, we worked in tech, but we hadn't worked in, I'm going to try to pull this out and not Jenga the Jenga out of this thing. And in essence, that was like the start to like my founding experience and like the first company I started working on.
Wow. But what was the switch between friends to dating? Like, what was that moment where you're like, I should invite her out?
I mean, I was a moron. Like I was like actually actively scared of it because I was like, I don't want to cross the boundary here. Like
Such a proper man.
Yes. But, I'm also highly anxious. So I was like battling that. And we were out drinks late night at like 9-10 p.m. At Public Hotel.
Okay.
And
that's a good date spot.
It's great.
Yeah.
And then she like leaned over, kissed me on the cheek. And I was like, oh, I think this girl likes me. So she made the first move. She's the more epic founder than me too. So yeah.
She's your better half.
Yes, she's truly the better half.
That's amazing. I love that story.
Yeah. And so like roll it forward. We both have been like each other's best advisors for all of our companies. We both sold companies. We built multiple companies. And now it's 10 years plus that we've known each other. We've been married for 5. We have a daughter on the way in December.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's like a new chapter.
It is a new chapter.
I wanted to open this with like my story, because the question I have for you is, for me, wellness, sex, and relationship, all this is like oneness around being a great entrepreneur. And I feel like it can't ever be out of balance. And I feel like everyone's always probably asking you about sex and sex life and all of that angle of it. But I'm really curious of like, how does sex impact how good of an entrepreneur you are? And how does relationship do that? Or does it?
I don't know if sex directly impacts how good of an entrepreneur you are, but it will certainly improve the quality of your life. There is this misconception that sex is a drive, and I really can't stand it when people say that, because a drive is really what you need to survive, which is eating, sleeping, drinking water, right? But with Freud and everything that we've been taught throughout the 20th century, it's that it is something that you really need to live. And look, if you don't have sex, you're not going to die. You're going to be fine. Yeah. But it does enhance your quality of life if it's something that you enjoy doing. And so if you feel comfortable in your skin, in your sexuality, you're probably going to be more confident in life. That's what research supports. And you're going to show up better, and you're going to build stronger relationships. And therefore, if you have a romantic relationship, you're going to be able to sustain that more easily.
That's so interesting.
One thing that I strongly believe is that if you communicate well in the bedroom, you communicate well in the boardroom, because it's so hard for you to be vulnerable about sex. And once you master that, you feel like you can master communication in every other aspect of your life. Brene Brown was mentioning how after she went viral with her TED Talk 15 years ago, so many entrepreneurs and CEOs reached out to her because they're like, the work that you do, we need to hire you for our company because we're not able to have the vulnerable conversations. And that's what it boils down to. When she asked, what do you think is preventing you from growing the company, making a better company? It was being able to have vulnerable and hard conversations.
Interesting.
And that is directly tied to how you communicate sexually.
I mean, that would track for me because when I was like in my 20s, I was an idiot. So, across both fronts, bad at business, bad with the ladies. And now in my 30s, found my lovely wife and have a couple good businesses. But from my side of the fence, it's like definitely communication is so key. And I think there's so much, there's so much like machismo that goes into it, at least from like my end, from the male side, right, where you like don't want to communicate. And I see that in the boardroom with founders that I invest in, as well as like, myself, right? It's like, how do you show true vulnerability? And great job.
Thank you.
What have you seen like failure modes happen in founding with relationships? Like I have a lot of founder friends that have gone through divorce, both men and women, as their startups.
It's so common.
It's so myopic where you have to trade your startup for your relationship. And I'd love to hear like what you've seen and how you think about that.
Well, unfortunately, we live in a very individualistic society. And so we believe that everything depends on us and solely us, and the community comes second. And the problem with that is, why do you think so many founders who exit, they're comfortable with the money that they make for a few years, and then they're like, shit, I need to do something with my life because I'm bored. But really at the core of it, it's because I feel irrelevant. How do I maintain relevant? And if you think about what matters at the end when you are in your coffin, it's who's going to show up and what are they going to say about you? And when you're at your deathbed, what are you going to reflect on in your life? And like, sure, you can be proud of the company that you built or the many companies that you built. But if at the end of the day, you don't have anybody to share that with, your relationships are purely transactional, very much professional networking. You don't have, partners or friends, like genuine close friends that are around you. You're going to feel empty.
Yes.
And so that's why cultivating these relationships matters. And so if you are in a romantic relationship and you care about that person, like you genuinely believe it's a solid relationship, because if we're going to be honest here, so many people stay in relationships for fear of being alone.
Yes.
And they know that they're in a shitty relationship, but they don't know how to leave it. And men especially have a really hard time being the first ones who say, you know what, this isn't working. Women tend to initiate divorce more often than men do.
That's crazy. Well, not crazy.
But it
makes
checks
sense.
if you think about,
totally checks.
All the friends in your life and whatnot. I can say that from my experience with my guy friends, right? And so if you are in a relationship where you really care about that person and you think that that person is a great partner for life, then it makes sense for you to prioritize that partner in some way. So a great story is the co-founder of Netflix, Mark. He had every Tuesday at 5 p.m., he would leave the office. It did not matter what was going on because he had date night reserved for his wife. And he claims that that is the one act that helped to maintain his marriage in solid ground. And he's so thankful for that now that he's exited and he's super wealthy. And, that's all the other factors aren't at play anymore. Now he has his family close. So
yeah, I feel like what you're really saying is that, or at least from my experience too, it's all about like the boundaries you set with those around you, right? And like the boundaries you set with the business. And for me in the past, I'd like failed to set boundaries and with the business. And I think that like it overtook my life.
It's easy for you to not to set boundaries, right?
And you have great excuses, especially if like, oh, money is freedom. And then like, I'll trade from this now for the future of freedom with my family tomorrow. And like, ultimately, I think that leads to, I've talked to more than one founder and entrepreneur and investor that like, that's, I had a close advisor of mine, because I've been interviewing everyone about like relationship and their kids because of my daughter coming.
Yeah.
And I've been wanting to understand how to balance CEO life with like my wife as well as my daughter. And the boundaries has been such a huge thing. But he was like, yeah, it was a wake up call to me when like my wife told me like, yeah, divorce is on the table. And he was like, fuck, I got to change everything and change the way I'm thinking, change the way my business is. And he's all about like, it's about oneness and creating boundaries and prioritization. Yeah. How, like, what are some, like, have you heard or gone through any other like boundaries that when you've typically like worked with your clients or that you've studied or that you've talked about that like CEOs should put around their business for their kids, for their partners, or is it relationship by relationship?
The number one thing is your cell phone. Your cell phone is deteriorating your relationship rapidly because we are always on and we're unable to unplug and to be fully present. And so, those movie scenes where the guy's at dinner and somebody calls and he's always picking up and he, not every phone call is going to be a life or death decision. And so you need to have a conversation with your assistant that you are going to be off of your phone for, whether it's 30 minutes, 1 hour, where, decisions are not going to be made. And that's possible, but you just need to want to do it, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the first things that I work through, it's funny because people come to me for sex, but at the end it's about connection.
I love that.
And so sexual exploration and understanding your pleasure blueprint and all of that is, yes, part of the work that I do, but inevitably it always starts with emotional connection because that's lacking in the relationship. People aren't setting their phones aside and actually listening to each other at the end of the day. They're not asking each other better questions. They're not incorporating non-sexual touch.
Yeah.
And so all of these things end up creating resentment and they drive you apart. And so then when you're like, oh, but my partner doesn't ever want to have sex. Well, but you're not doing anything to bridge that gap. And so you need the warm up. And part of the warm up is cultivating that daily erotic connection. And people think, oh, erotic, like it must be sexy. And no, it doesn't need to
guys
be.
Are pretty stupid.
Well, it's because men are not given space to express their emotions. They're basically able to do so within 4 categories of life. It's sex, it's violence, it's work, and it's sports.
Sounds like GTA 5.
Exactly. And so if you don't know or you're not allowed to express your emotions, you don't even realize when you're in founder mode and you need to scale this company to have an exit within X amount of time that you're lacking in the emotional arena. You're like, oh, this is fine. But then suddenly your wife calls you and is like, fuck, I want a divorce. Yeah. And you're like, this came out of left field. What's going on? That's because men, unfortunately, are socialized to not cultivate that in their own lives. And I think that's a really important component moving forward that men and boys should be given, to learn how to build that.
Yeah, I didn't even, so I'm like clinically very anxious. I've actually very successfully used EMDR to therapy for those that don't know what that is, right. To basically like mine into my trauma. And one of my favorite books is The Body Keeps Score.
Yes, it really does.
It totally does. And I didn't even realize I was anxious. It doesn't count. Playing this game while doing this is challenging.
It is very challenging.
I gotta get one of these. Oh yeah, look at that one. So you gotta cheat and probe.
Okay.
That's like, so that's the Jenga hack is you poke a bunch and then the ones that drift out.
Okay.
Drift out.
Okay.
So I didn't even realize I've been very chronically anxious my whole life. And when I look back on that lens now, it's very obvious to me, but I didn't realize until I was 30, until I had a big personal event happen. And it forced me to really start looking at myself. And that was actually around the time that I met my wife and I started getting a lot of introspection and working on myself. And I think a lot of that is just the way that men are raised where we aren't supposed to feel emotion. So it's I don't have anxiety. I'm tough. I can go through whatever. And it's dude, you're deeply anxious. And this is causing waves in your work life, your friendships, your romantic relationships and everything. And so until I really solved that, which was my motivation was to actually be a better partner and to live more comfortably. I wasn't able to be a great entrepreneur. Okay. And so that's why everything you're saying just really resonates with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the very small things that people don't realize can completely flip the relationship is, I mentioned this earlier, asking better questions. Not just how was your day and not listening, but what did you learn today? What do you need help with? How can I show up better? What do you need from me? And when you are curious about what you're each going through, you're able to grow better. People joke about relationship check-ins and they can sound very unsexy, but when you're constantly feeding that with each other, you feel so safe and supported that your partner has your back and that they're going to follow through, right? That's something that my husband and I maintain in our relationship every single day, and it feels like a true partnership. And that makes me desire him even more because of it. And I have a client who the husband is a tech founder. He just sold his company, but he needs to be in the company that acquired his for a few more years. And he travels a lot and they have 3 kids and they do have a lot of help. Money isn't the problem. But what frustrates the wife is that the husband doesn't seem to show any interest in how in helping to manage any of the mental load. And so he was like, well, but just hire more help. And she goes, that's not the point. It seems that it all falls on me. And I understand that this is a very important part of your life and it's a phase and you'll soon be home. But I need you to demonstrate some sort of support and interest in managing the kids and the emotional load at home. And so how can we sit down and agree on this? And so if you have one partner that doesn't even want to budge on that, your wife is not going to want to have sex with you.
Yeah.
Which to me, it was so enlightening when I had that conversation, because it's like, it does not matter the amount of money that you have. People want others to show up emotionally and care.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just got in a fight like literally a day ago with my pregnant wife because I was like, "What? I want to help you more. Like, what should we do to help you?" And she's like, "You idiot!" Just like, and she said it. She's very sweet. She said it like much nicer than this. She's spicy, spicy South American. And so she was like, "Why don't you think of the things that we do and then come with solutions, and then you can just create the solutions?" And I was like, I would have never, like, if you had have like thrown the dice, I would have never in a billion years just thought of that. And now when you say it, it's like so obvious. I'm like, man, I was like really dumb. I should have just like, oh yeah, like you're cooking dinner a lot and like we're both really busy because we're both founders. So like, let me get a meal prep service for us on some nights, like.
Exactly. But it's small stuff like that make a really big difference. It will make her panties drop, literally. But often when it comes to the household, men haven't been trained for that. So even though they are people who think of solutions on a regular basis, when it comes to the household, they default to the women. And so research has shown that even, in dual income households, when the wife makes more money, she still does more of the housework and more of the childcare than men do. When they're both unemployed, she also still does more of the housework and the childcare than the man does. It's just the default of the way that we've been raised.
So is it our mother's fault? The boy's mom's fault? My mother would like to know.
I don't want to place all that blame on her, but sometimes it inherently is how we're brought up.
Yeah, because I was like, I really don't like laundry, and that's like a point of friction. And my wife's like, "Did your mom ever make you fucking do laundry?" And I was like, "Well, sort of, but I just lived out of a pile of clothes on my floor."
Exactly.
And then I asked
laundry's
my mom,
a big one.
Yeah, and it's like the stupidest thing. And then I'm just like, oh wow, like I don't want my like it like as you're raising a kid, you're like, okay, like I really don't want there to be necessarily like gender roles per se. Let's share equal load, like all of this stuff, because like even in myself, I don't want that inherent limitation, but I have it, and then it causes like friction in my own relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is so cool. So I want to,
but I did want to ask you something.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you were both founders in the early days, when you're so overwhelmed, you're starting something new, how was sex between the two of you, if you don't mind me asking?
It's always been fantastic. That's why I married her.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
like honestly, like we've always just had such a deep connection because we have such high trust with each other, right. And we have to fight really hard to like be together, because we had to like overcome a lot and make hard choices to be with one another, and so that led to a great foundation. We also got together when we're much older, and we had known each other for many years. So I think a lot of like folks are, oh, this is such a risky one. I think a lot of,
I'm gonna try another one then.
Do it. I think a lot of folks, especially like from the male side of the fence.
I can't wait. Sorry. Pause.
Yes. Pause.
With Jenga, can I like hold? Can my hand like do?
You're not supposed to hold.
Okay.
This is epic.
This is me controlling my core as I pull this out.
I'm not going to touch the table. I think there's definitely a lot of like fear from men, I think, to date women in work because of like, and there was also like a ton of creepy dudes that were like, I think ruined it. There we go. They like ruined it for everybody. But also like, I have a bunch of single, awesome female founder friends. And like, they're like, I go out to the bar and like, no one even approaches me. And they're like beautiful, they're amazing. Or like guys are intimidated by them. And I'm just like, dude, this whole world, like I'm lucky. I feel like I just started dating at like the cutoff before everything just like went online.
Well, do you speak to your guy friends, the ones who have a harder time showing up for dating?
All my guy friends are now married.
Okay.
Because I'm like 38. So it's like, but like that's, this is going to be tough. I don't know. I might have to. Oh no, I don't know how to do this. The other thing with my relationship that makes it incredible is we both, like, we don't always get along, and we're actually both type A, which is, like, I think kind of interesting.
You don't always get along because you're both type A.
Well, yeah, because, like, there's sometimes, like, who's the, like, we have, like, code for, like, well, who's the boss of, like, I have to cheat a little bit. Oh, man. I've, like, talking and doing this at the same time is too hard.
I'm like, can I just pull it out on this end?
My finger's, like, too fat to get in there. Let's see. Teamwork makes the dream work. And so basically, like, we started creating, like, we basically create agreements, right? So, like, when we find each other both trying to be in control, like, let's say we're, like, organized in the basement, and I'm, like, doing my thing, she's doing hers, and we're like, and then, like, well, who's the boss right now? And then we'll be like, oh, I'll be the boss, and then, like, you be the, like, the helper, right? So, like, we have, like, that vernacular. The other is,
I love that, by the way.
I deeply understand, like, what she finds intimacy. So, like, my wife doesn't always like to be touched. She gets, like, really overstimulated, right? Because she's, like, ADHD, and, like, like for me, I'm like, touch, cuddle, like,
that's gonna get harder when she has kids,
totally,
by the way.
Totally. And we're like going through that, but we have, like, we have an amazing dialogue where just since, like, literally the first month dating, I, like, try to snuggle up and whatever, and she'd be like, that's too much. And so now it's just like, when she says too much, I'm just like, oh, too much, cool. And, like, it's not like I don't get a bruised ego. She doesn't feel bad about asking me that. So, like, we're very, like, okay knowing each other's boundaries, Or if I'm, like, very, very anxious, I'll say, hey, I just, like, need a hug right now. I know you probably don't feel like hugging me, but, like, can I have a hug? And she'll, like, usually, like, give me a hug, And so that's, like, our little ways of kind of creating those little systems.
Yeah.
That, I think, builds, like, deeper and deeper intimacy with us.
Absolutely.
We're very close.
These are called agreements. And when you honor these agreements, they make all the difference in the relationship. Absolutely.
I feel like your advice is not, like, yes, it's sex advice, but I feel like your advice is, like, just business advice. Like, there was some the other day where it's like,
I mean, I used to work in finance, so I am very, business and metrics focused. And I think a lot of eroticism is obviously about getting lost in time. It's not productive. But if you don't have some sort of measured way to understand if you're progressing and feeling good in your relationship, it's really hard for you to adjust, because then you just become a passive player, and you'll wake up 10 years later and you're in a shitty relationship that's completely disconnected, and you don't know where time went, So I think it's important for you to make sure that you're finding the ways to check in and make those adjustments as you go. So yes, a lot of my advice, I mean, when I first started working with clients, I ended up building out the SMART model for them to have specific, measurable, actionable ways to measure their progress. And
I mean, everything you're talking about is literally, like, what I would want as an investor, board member, co-founder in a business. And, like, all the, like, I think so many co-founder splits is also just, like, a bad relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think when you are a founder and you are used to working with metrics, I'm overwhelmed all the time. So how can I actually build and sustain that relationship and make it feel, good? You're like, okay, this is, like, one thing that you can do today, or one thing that you can do weekly, or what have you agreed on with your partner? And that just makes it easy for you to, because then you can't, there's no debate on that one thing that you both agreed on.
My brain kind of jumps around.
Okay.
I would love to know, what do you do with couples that have different libido levels?
So that is the most common thing, by the way. Like, clinically we treat mismatched desire. We call desire discrepancy. But the truth is that you're not always going to want to sleep at the same time as your partner, or take a shower, or eat at the same time. So naturally, you're not always going to want to have sex at the same time, right? And men tend to have a more spontaneous desire style that tends to be driven by testosterone levels. But some women also do ascribe to spontaneous desire. I do. Women tend to have responsive desire styles, meaning that they get in the mood after the sexy things start happening. And so Foreplay begins when the last time you had sex ends. It's like what I mentioned earlier. How are you maintaining that erotic connection day in and day out so that when sex is initiated next time, it doesn't feel like it came out of left field?
Yeah.
Right? And that connection will determine not only when the next time is going to happen, but how hot it's going to be. And so it's so important for you to understand your sexual templates. Like, what are the things that you find sexy and what are the things that turn you on across all 5 senses? And how do you realistically employ that in your daily life? So giving you a few examples, I have a client where she is the primary breadwinner. Her husband works too. They have 2 kids, and she can get into what she calls Miss Bossy Pants mode. And her and her husband have this agreement that when that's been going on for a little bit longer than is desired, he, in one move, grabs her hands behind her back and places his other hand on her neck and just completely takes over. And so she knows that that's the time to submit. It's the moment where she's able to turn off her thinking mind and get into that erotic space with him, right? Like, she likes that submissiveness. And so that's something that works for them. There's another couple where they love sending each other nudes and videos of them pleasuring themselves, right? And that works. That's how they're able to maintain that because they both travel a lot.
Yeah.
So if you are in a situation where you're like, well, whatever she's just described right now completely gives me the ick. Like, I do not want aggression in the bedroom, and I absolutely don't want to send nudes. Yeah. If you are the kind of person that's like, I need the time to slow down and be present, then you need to agree on, you need to schedule sex. And so maybe that's Sunday morning when, if you have kids, the kids might be sleeping in later, or, there's just not going to be extracurricular activities that are happening. And so you're going to designate maybe 1 hour, which is a lot if you're a parent, to becoming intimate with each other. And
How
that
many
is
parents schedule sex?
A lot of them, because it's not about the scheduling sex. It's about scheduling that time one-on-one with each other where you're like, we're going to have this time where we're going to be touching each other. And if it leads to sex, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. But we're going to connect erotically. And this is one-on-one time dedicated to us. If you can do that once a week, that is going to make a big difference. Because it shows that you find each other important enough that you're prioritizing this time. You're also, within this time, exploring a new activity. Because if you create, let's say you create a bowl of activities, it's not just about having the sex. It's maybe doing an erotic massage or somatic exercises that allow you to explore your erogenous zones, trying something new. The beauty of scheduling sex is that you are going to explore a new sexual activity that you wouldn't otherwise if you just decide to have sex spontaneously, where you're going to default to the same things that you usually do.
How does one, I got really into fitness because I was able to get this awesome app that just basically suggested the workout for me to do. I think you have something with Wonderlust too, right? That helps couples think of that. What are some ways of thinking about that? Yeah.
In fact, we have an intimacy card deck that helps couples talk about sex, and I brought one for you and your wife.
Thank you.
Of course. I think
so beautiful.
At the core of it, thank you. I partnered with a Brazilian artist who made the artwork for it. So each of the cards has an erotic piece of art.
That's
to
amazing.
Create a very experiential date night.
I was actually in Bahia with my wife in February.
No,
surfing.
I love Bahia.
Yeah.
How did you guys find out about Bahia?
We have a Brazilian friend.
Oh.
And she invited us, and we loved it, and we were just surfing, and then literally a couple weeks later we got pregnant. So the Brazil worked magic.
It does. It's in the water. That's amazing. Yeah. People want easy, fun, accessible ways to talk about sex and to explore their desires. And so how do you get into that mode? One way that I thought of was, well, why don't I create a card deck that's going to make you get off of your phone? Because everybody's like, why don't you have an app? And I'm like, I don't want you to be on your phone.
Thank you.
So you're going to set your phones aside, and the card is going to lead the conversation. It takes that pressure off of your back because you're like, I don't know what I'm going to ask next. Or maybe if I ask it, it's going to offend my partner, or I don't know how my partner is going to take it. And you can just blame it on the card, right? And the great news is that, and this was not my intention when I created the card deck, I created it for long-term partners, but it works for whether you're single or whether you've been together for 30 years. Literally, you could just read the reviews on the website because you're asking questions that don't normally get asked, especially in the early days of dating where it leads to really hot sex. And in long-term relationships, you're like, well, this is a great opportunity for us to learn something new, ask better questions.
Yeah. I feel like there's also like so much misinformation out there for like, I'll own my gender for guys specifically. Like, we don't have good data. So like, this is giving us good data. I'm happy about that. I can't wait to try it out.
Absolutely. Yeah. But honestly, look, like, regardless of the deck, if you're thinking about how can I open myself up to talking about this with my partner, exploring new things, you can grab this podcast episode and say, hey, I learned that talking about sex is something that helps us have better sex. And I know that's important for us. So, when would you be open to sitting down? I want to check in with you.
Yeah.
Like, what's working for you? What would you like to explore more of? Or you can send an article, or there are so many different Netflix series now on sex. So it really is about that approach and having the conversation about the conversation, which is not coming out of left field and telling your partner, like, how's your sex? Like, how do you consider our sex life to be? It's I want to talk about this and I want to be thoughtful about it. When would your nervous system be calm enough for us to sit down and chat, right?
I feel like that's the theme of a lot of the advice you're giving, is that being thoughtful leads to better, hotter sex.
Absolutely. And also, one thing that you mentioned is that you experience a lot of anxiety.
Yes.
Do you practice any mindfulness techniques at all?
I have meditated, and I was doing a lot of like honestly, I love surfing. That like I do activities more, and that actually gets me more in like a flow state. Like basically like weightlifting and surfing. And then my wife and I actually weightlift together. Okay. So like, she's 24 weeks pregnant, and she was in the gym with me yesterday. We were both in the different squat racks doing our thing. She was doing the pregnancy safe stuff. But, for us, like physical activity builds a lot of intimacy.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Like non-sexual, but I just feel like there's awesome pheromones, and like, you're putting up great weight, and like when we both would like surf together. So for us, it's like a lot more activity based. And then that reinforces, that actually just like makes me calmer. And it sort of like takes the anxiety radio signal down from like an 8-9 to like a 1-2.
That makes a really big difference. One of the exercises that I give couples, and in fact, to your question earlier about what can people incorporate on a daily basis, are somatic exercises that allow you to turn off your mind and connect with your body and with your partner for 3 minutes when you get home.
What's a somatic exercise?
Somatic is when you are in touch with your body.
Okay.
It's the physiology of it all.
Is it like kind of like Kama Sutra, or like?
No. It's just it's the scientific like practice of how the body and the mind connect, but it's really about how you're connecting with your body. And so somatic exercises are that. You're bringing in the breath, the skin, the sensations, the clearing of the mind. Like, it really is about tuning in.
We definitely like do breathing together, but I would love do you have any where can one find these exercises?
We are far apart, so I wouldn't do this exercise on you, but I will do it on me so that people can do it at home. So basically, you're going to sit, you and your partner are going to face each other. You're going to decide who's going to be the receiver first. And the giver is going to start by placing their hands on the receiver's hairline right here. And with their nails and their hands, they're going to go all the way down to the back and then place their hands down the front of their chest and out through the hips. You're going to do this a few times, and then you're going to incorporate also some compression of the arms as well. And this is a moment where you're really clearing out your partner's head, the receiver's head, and having them tune into the sensations and tune into their body. It's a very small exercise. It really takes 1.5 minutes each, 3 minutes. And it's such a great way for you to transition from work mode, coming from the streets, and being with your partner and being more present. And so this is an example of a somatic exercise.
I love the intentionality of that.
Yeah.
See, I never knew anything about that.
There you go. A lot of the erogenous zones exercises that I give too are not sexual in nature.
Yeah.
They are that in a different format, but it is about you exploring touch and breath and sensations and understanding what feels good. But when you really focus on touch, you're able to quiet your mind and feel more connected to your partner. And so honestly, for founders who have very little time and they're like, well, maybe I can't put my phone away for 30 minutes. Like, well, do you have maybe 10 or 15 minutes where you're going to spend 3 to 5 of those doing a somatic exercise, a breathing exercise with your partner, and then you're going to check in with each other. Like,
Yeah.
How was your day? Like, how can I support you? You know, what do you need from me?
I think also if someone's saying like they can't put down their phone for 30 minutes, like you got a problem. Like I
Absolutely,
think
but it's so,
all the billionaires in the world
I
put their phone down.
I hear people say like the way that we unwind at the end of the day is we'll have maybe an hour and we'll both be with our phones on the couch. And it's like, well, that's why you don't fuck.
I saw my biggest pet peeve lately is like go out to restaurants and see 2 people both on their phones. It's like, why don't you just order DoorDash and stay at home?
That drives me crazy. I think there's such a lack of curiosity. At the end of the day, what desire is, it's about mystery and curiosity. And so how can you continue driving that in your relationship? You and your wife sound like very interesting people. You have a lot of interesting things going on. Founders that are listening to this are probably in the same situation. So you might think that you know everything about each other, but if you are genuinely curious about your partner, you're able to continue driving that mystery between the two of you that will continue driving that desire. And another thing, I mean, it sounds really simple, but they are powerful. You need to find new experiences to do together, because what I've found is that partners will always revert to the traditional like dinner date.
Yeah.
And sure, if you're into gastronomy, my husband and I love that too, but you need to make a concerted effort to start frequenting a pottery class, a drawing class, a photography class, go to a museum, see art, look into different experiences. If you're into sports, what are sports that you can learn together? My husband and I played pickleball, and that was so exciting for us, right? We did that last summer, and you start seeing your partner in a new light, and that's a very easy way for you to plan in novelty into your relationship. And research has shown that it was specifically with actually shucking oysters, that when couples learned how to shuck oysters together, they were 36 times more likely to have sex that day.
There we go, Long Island in Connecticut.
Yes.
There we go.
And the good news was that energy persisted for longer in the relationship. But the point isn't
So
the
we should all
36
buy
times more
oysters.
likely. It's just like in general, it is exactly. It's that energy that you bring into it, right? Because I've had very successful entrepreneurs ask these questions, and they're like, well, organize something new with your partner, because you probably have assistants. Like, have your assistants do the background work of what's going on in town and what can you organize together. And just that in and of itself has already shifted, because it's something you both look forward to. You have new things to talk about.
How often, I mean, this just all got me thinking of like how often sexual preferences change, and you maybe don't even realize sexual preferences change.
Yeah.
So if you have like good exploration, you might find new sexual preferences that are like hot and exciting and like reinvigorating. Is a lot about this like almost product discovery of like new sexual preferences for one another together?
Yeah. So Couples sometimes get very shy or fear new sexual preferences because they're like, where did you learn that? Right? And maybe you did watch it in porn. Or there's ethical porn websites that are made more for the female gaze, like XO Afterglow or
I did
Erica
want to ask you
Lust.
about that.
Yes. Platforms, they do such a great job of making porn feel more realistic, more desiring for the female gaze. Or also I recommend literary erotica, audio erotica, but you want to stimulate your mind with erotic things because the more that you're involved in that, the easier it is for you to think about it. So if you're coming home from work and you're listening to audio erotica, like especially for women, that's a great source of stimulation. And I mean, if we're speaking to the founders here,
You got it. You got it. I'll cheat. You've helped me. I got you. Teamwork.
Usually founders, they're making so many decisions in the workplace that the last thing they want to do is make decisions at home, right? And that translates into sex. So that's something that I experienced myself. I used to always be very dominant. And then once I became an entrepreneur, I was just like, just be aggressive. Like, come on me, I want you to like throw me against the wall and pin me down. And for my husband, that was such a 180 from what I was originally in the beginning of the relationship. So there has been that adjustment, but it's because I don't want to make any more decisions, right? I want to be in a place where I shut my mind off and I just submit to him. And so that's the reason why so many Fortune 500 CEOs are frequenting dungeons and they like to role play as submissives to, their doms. And I think that's the beauty of sex. It's adult play.
Yeah.
So I also encourage couples to explore that. And it's so funny because even the most seemingly vanilla couples that I begin working with, everybody has a kind of role play,
Everybody's freaky
power dynamic, totally, that they want to explore.
Where would you go to get toys and get ideas and get all this kind of stuff if you're dating a founder like me, or if you aspire to date a badass founder? Where would you recommend? Or if not, if you just...
A great company is Pleasure Chest. They have stores here. They have it in LA and they have online. There's so much variety. But there's also so many great direct-to-consumer companies that might not have as much variety as a retailer like them does. But I love Mod. I love Unbound Babes. I love the lube at Body. They have blowjob oil lubes that are absolutely incredible and make the experience, more exciting, and it just adds that flavor to it. So there's a ton of different, brands that focus on providing something that is more, I'd say, more sophisticated, something that is more palatable, because one problem that women faced for so long is these very gaudy sex shops that you would be totally embarrassed to walk into. And with the rise of these direct-to-consumer companies in the mid-2010s, it's completely changed how we think of sexual products. They're so much more beautiful. The card deck is an example of it. Yeah. Historically, the card decks, I just thought that they visually didn't look appealing whatsoever.
It's like a bachelor party vibe or bachelorette party vibe.
Totally. And look, there's a time and place for that, and that's fine, But if you want more and more people to partake in it, they want beautiful things on their bedside table.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you too, so much of it, it's the right toy or the right thing or the right rope but how do you get, I feel like it was one of your other interviews, maybe with NBC, or it might have been in a piece you were writing, but you were talking about how important education is, as well as the actual toy itself.
Yes.
And I'd love to where can people get education? Because
There's
I'm
also
not that smart.
Right. There's also a great app called Beducated.
Okay.
There is Oh My God, Yes, which teaches you everything about the female pleasure. Or you can work with both coaches and therapists. I coach women and couples. But today, thankfully, there's a lot more education. But my main issue with the field is that there's generally a lot of like quick fixes that come with it. Like take this libido gummy or, you're going to take these supplements. And for the most part, they don't do anything. I mean, libido gummies definitely won't change anything for you. Unfortunately. Sorry for whoever sells those. But
hey, horny goat weed is a great product.
I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's understanding your desire style and communicating and then putting it into action, exploring. That's really going to make a difference. And that all starts with sexual education. And so I think that the companies that are going to succeed are the ones who are able to pair the great products with the great education.
Yeah. So naturally, I build a lot of different AI companies. AI could be really great in education, but also like people are putting out like AI girlfriends, like all sorts of stuff. So like I'd love to like what do you think about like AI and intimacy? Because I could see on one end it being very helpful to like help a couple educate, but I could see on another like us just people continuing to just diverge and be like in their own pods,
There's still so much for us to build out in that field. So I think it can be very powerful. But the problem is the unethical behavior that can come with an AI product. And so we've seen this with ChatGPT and the unfortunate deaths of some people who, didn't have the appropriate mental health counselors or therapists that were guiding them through that. So I think one thing is like, how do you prevent that from happening, right? Because we talked about this earlier before we started filming, but if I am to create an AI version of me with all of my knowledge and my tone of voice and whatnot for my clients to use, I want to make sure that it can never be manipulated to the point where I'm giving unethical and harmful advice. So first things first is like, how do we make sure that that doesn't go into the programming of the product? Mm-hmm. And the second thing is people want to talk to people. And so while AI can certainly help, at the end of the day, I really strongly believe that we're going to be willing to pay a premium to maybe not every time, but every now and then talk to a human to make sure that whatever advice we received through the AI is not only correct, but like you want to have that validation from another human.
I mean, I also think like, XAI put like very sexy anime avatars on Grok. Whereas like ChatGPT, Sam Altman made like a dig where he's like, well, if we wanted usage up, we could have just put sexy anime girlfriends. And then there is a whole thread on Reddit about people who I forget which AI it was, but there was one where they had like legitimately, or I guess it was ChatGPT, like they were so upset that they had updated it to like version 5 that they were like, I was in love with version 3, and they had like a whole thread and they had this like relationship with the AI itself.
But then I think that this speaks to the connection crisis that we're in, which is what my work does at the end of the day, right? Like we're not having vulnerable conversations. We're staying home because we don't want to deal with any tension or any obstacle that can come up in, a natural relationship, whether it's with friends or with a romantic partner or with someone that we're hitting on that we can be rejected from. And so we really need to unlearn that and put ourselves out there and build stronger community, because I don't think that scares me that you fall in love with an AI.
Yeah, you should go hit on a person in real life.
But also the harmful part of the AI boyfriend or the AI girlfriend is the AI girlfriend is just like mainstream porn, giving you an unrealistic idea of what a girlfriend should be, even aesthetically.
Yes.
Right? And then there's actually this podcast called Dire Straits. It's on Substack. And these two women ended up dating AI boyfriends for a week. And they are, extremely like machista. Like there's a very heavy bro, dynamic that happens in them where the guy doesn't ask the woman any questions. He is gaslighting her, like all of the things. I think this plays into the dynamic that we're talking about so much now, which is heterofatalism. People are tired of dating and being in heterosexual relationships. So that's something that I think is you need to keep in mind. Like there's a lot of bias in creating these different products.
Completely. I think it's your Jenga pole.
It's my Jenga pole. Okay.
But yeah, we've talked about like so many different things. And to me, it all keeps going back to like, through all my different co-founders, like it's almost like a marriage, right? And
yeah, except without the best part, which is the sex.
Yes. And that's one of the top reasons startups fail. So like what is like your top advice for managing your co-founder relationships?
I think it's having the vulnerable conversations early and frequently. Like having the hard things that you don't want to talk about, you need to make sure that those are spoken, because or else it's just resentment is going to build. I don't want to be that person.
That's the point. I think you got it. I'm not touching.
I am holding my core. Oh my God.
And then what do you think is like?
No, but would you agree with the vulnerability?
Yes.
Because that's, especially men, like that is hard, You guys just want to like solve problems. And it's like sometimes you need to talk about what's going on emotionally. Like, are you taking each other to the bad movies? Yes. Are you taking each other to the bad movies without, you're suffering in anticipation? What are you suffering about? Like, how can you nip this in the bud before it becomes a serious issue? But I also think it's really important for you to have one of these, like, just like romantic relationships have agreements. Like, you need to have these agreements probably in writing, in contract, of like how you're going to solve these disagreements and like what are your responsibilities to each other. I think that's so important.
Yeah. And then those kind of evolve and change over time. I think it's also like what I've even seen.
You've left me in a really tight spot here.
Oh, you just there's a bunch of good ones to test here. I think like you were saying, a lot of the male founders have trouble showing vulnerability. I also think it like venture and company building as a founder is such a male dominated industry. The female founders in the industry also like extra don't want to show vulnerability because they could be like punished for it from a business perspective as well. So like like my last co-founder, she's a woman, and so we've had I think
no, keep going.
I think it's just different founding with like different genders. In some ways, like when you were saying, oh yeah, this happens with the men as well. But I'm like, actually, like I think in some ways it's like really difficult for female founders too, to show vulnerability.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we're not allowed to be in our feminine.
Yeah.
And it's really just about the balance. Like what I have very masculine tendencies too.
Yeah.
But they've shown time and time again that women, whether we're leading investment funds or leading companies, we tend to lead to more profitable businesses. So, there is something to be said there. It's just that more often than not, women aren't given the same opportunities to be at the helm.
Completely.
Unfortunately. Or motherhood can also play a role in that, which is understandable. You want to be present with your kid. But yes, women do have a hard time being in that role. I remember when I first got into finance, someone told me, in finance, you are either a whore or a dick.
Wow.
So that's the message that women get very early on.
What's your message to female founders?
I think you need to stand your ground. Like, you need to find your place in between, like, the soft and the hard, because that's your competitive advantage. It's you knowing how to listen. It's you knowing how to guide vulnerable conversations. And it's also you learning how to, position yourself and speak up in the boardroom.
Yeah.
And asking to be seated at the table with everybody else. That's what helped me when I was in finance.
And then what about if you're a male co-founder or a male investor or male board member and you're trying to support a female founder who's amazing?
Checking in, make sure that you're open to hearing what might not be working well and actually implementing change. Because if anything, what I've always heard is what I've experienced and what I've heard from others is that you might be willing to hear what's going on, but you're not willing to fix it. And if you have the position in upper management or as a board member to step in and be like, hey, there's this issue here. Like, a lot of men are averse to dealing with problems.
We're avoidant creatures, aren't we?
A bit, unfortunately. So you're great at other things, but avoiding problems, whether it's in the relationship or at work, is unfortunately a big characteristic that most men tend to share.
Do you think that that's like the top reason?
Because you're not willing to have these vulnerable conversations and you're dealing with that conflict. You're like, I don't want to do that,
Yeah. So that's like a driver of like not having sex, like not working well with a female founder, not like working well with your co-founder. Or
not having, a better emotional connection with your partner. Yeah, absolutely. It's all tied.
So what is your, can I basically hit you with some speed round questions?
Sure.
And we'll
wait. Is this my round or your round?
This is your round.
Oh, really? I don't know.
If you want me to, as the host, I will go again. If you think.
No, I'll take you up on it.
What was the biggest turning point in your career?
Oh, it was leaving finance to become an entrepreneur. But like I changed my whole life because I was living in Brazil at the time. Look at that. I was living in Brazil at the time, and I have an American citizenship, so I'm able to come and go. And I was married before, and I was working in finance, not fulfilled for so long. And I decided to really restart my life and come to the US. And you're leaving me in a very tight spot. I went to college here in New York, and so I already had a network, and I started another wellness company and realized how much I love being an entrepreneur. But we were in the fitness space, which is very saturated, and we launched our company a few weeks before COVID hit. So it's just like if Joseph Pilates had launched Pilates, an exercise that nobody had done before that looked different from everything else, which was what our movement modality really incorporated. If he launched online, it would have never worked. Yeah. You need to build community. You need to teach it in person. So we tried to do that for a year. And then my husband goes, okay, well, you're thinking of the next thing. I'm like, I absolutely don't want to work for anybody else. I've always loved talking about sex. And I have an ease that most people don't. Yeah. In that, I ended up surveying 500 couples and discovering that what was at the core of them not having a better sex life was being able to communicate about it, which led to this card deck. And from there, I ended up going viral on TikTok, educating about sex and relationships and realizing I love this so much more than procuring manufacturers and dealing with logistics and the cash flow management that comes with, a consumer product goods company or any company that has physical products, really. And I just decided to go all in. So I got my certification, and I've really shifted the business to, we still have the card deck, but people ask me, why haven't you released more products? And it's because I've shifted to services. And I love working one-on-one with couples, and I'm going to continue building that out in many other ways. But that has completely shifted my life. And it led me to meeting my husband and to building the life that I always dreamed of. And I'm very passionate about what I do today. And I was not when I worked in finance. So very few people have truly the privilege of working with something that they love. And so I feel very privileged.
I was saying this earlier today. Love is leverage in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Because like the whole world's going up against you. And statistically, when you start a business, that shouldn't work out. Like you're like, I want to work on a sex business. And you're like helping people with sex. And like, I want to help people. And it's like, okay, like that's such a hard market to break into. It's like you're trying to escape the velocity of like the sun. And you just love this a lot more than other people. And like, that's what I share with founders all the time. I was like, you have to find that thing. Can you tell me a bit about like the transition into finding the thing you love? Because I talk about this with every founder I work with. Like, how did it go from shutting down a failed idea or shutting down something that didn't work in the market at that time? Yeah. Like we all go through that as an entrepreneur, and then finding the thing you love. Like, what was the process?
So I don't think that you should necessarily find the thing you love. I think you should focus on what you're very curious about and leverage that with what you're good at. And so for me, yes, I was curious about sex, and I also saw an opportunity in the market. Like the sexual wellness industry, really, like I had mentioned, with the direct-to-consumer companies that were making such beautiful sex products that didn't exist previously. Yeah. It's not a saturated marketplace yet. So I combined that with my...
I was the one that did it.
No, we had a great go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to get like the whole episode.
Yeah.
I was going to see how tall we could get. But.
So I think it's a combination of understanding what are you curious about, what you're good at, and what is the opportunity in the market for it? Is it a very saturated marketplace? And if so, how can you differentiate yourself? If it's not, then you have a lot less to lose. And so that was my thought process when it came to pivoting to sexual wellness. But
so you approach it like financially, like from your finance background. Like that's very...
I did, yes.
Yeah, that's very like quant.
Yes. You need to, right?
Yeah.
If you want to survive, especially in a city like New York.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was very hard to shut down a business that didn't work out. But I did a few things wrong in that time. It was my first time being an entrepreneur. I had a co-founder. We were not a match. I love her, but we have different working styles in a way that wasn't complementary. And so she got burned out very quickly, and we had different visions for the future. And so I also, one thing that I learned about working in finance was learning how to calling it quit. Yeah. Quitting early is not failure. It's literally a form of self-preservation for you to move on to more aligned things. It's like quitting in a relationship early. Sometimes
you have so many like t-shirt ideas. Like every other saying this whole episode, I'm like, that should be on a t-shirt. That should be on a t-shirt.
That. But not every relationship is worth saving. And so when you know that cutoff point, that is so much better for your health and for your life and for you're honoring the relationships. It's respect. And so yeah, for my ego, it was hard because my friends in finance were like, well, already, right? Like your first venture didn't work out, but now we're here 3.5 years out, and I'm so lucky. So I think honestly, my advice out of all of this is like, don't be scared to burn down your life and start over.
That's so funny you said that. That's like literally the fundamental couple promise between Mimi and I, my wife, that we made like right when we started dating. Is like we're basically always willing to like burn it down and start over. And that's why we both ended up being entrepreneurs. Like we've closed businesses down, we've sold businesses, like everything, but we always like stay true to that. And so yeah, epic, another epic t-shirt / bumper sticker / saying. Yeah. Did like your ability to be okay talking about sex, do you think that came from like some of my family's South American? Like I think just inherently my perspective as an American is like they're much more open to talk about intimacy, like all sorts of stuff, family stuff. Like do you feel that like being Brazilian, it like helped drive a lot of that?
It starts in the home. I came from a part of Brazil where people are much more conservative. It's a very Catholic country after all. So I wouldn't say that that's just inherent to, the ambiance that I grew up in. But my mom specifically was very open about it. And so that allowed me to have an open line and a safe line of communication with her and feeling confident in having these conversations with my friends and eventually much older with my sexual partners. So I think very much how you're raised makes a big difference. Yes.
And then where in New York City is the best tapioca?
I actually, I think it's called tapi, but I've never had it here. But tapioca is a fever in Brazil. Yeah, absolutely. It's just a very easy meal for you to put together.
Is there a favorite Brazilian spot in New York that you want to shout out? I'm
Yeah,
always on the hunt.
I love berimbau.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a location in the West Village and in Midtown. That has great Brazilian food.
And then, are you a surfer?
I'm not a surfer. No.
Is there any experience or activity that you like to do with your husband?
Besides sex.
Yeah. That helps get to sex.
Yeah, that helps get to sex. We love to play pickleball.
Yeah.
And we have these days in the weekends where we just walk around the city and just allow the city to take us wherever. So we have no plans. And that's an activity that just allows us to connect, very easily. In terms of sex, my husband and I, we have this rule that we never say no to each other when we initiate because it's a bid for connection. It's not necessarily about the sex itself. So yes, and it shifts everything when you understand that framing. And so if he initiates or if I initiate and neither of us are in the mood or we don't want to give a shot to be in the mood, we're like, well, what are we open for? If it's not penetrative sex, maybe it's oral, maybe to just give it to the other partner. Maybe it's a hand job, maybe it's a cuddle or a hug. Like, it's just, what are you open to giving back so that you don't shut them off completely? And because we feed that connection every day and because we have these agreements in place, that honestly allows having the sex to be much easier. That being said, generally it's weekend mornings because sex is something that stress is something that inhibits his libido, and it actually is something that drives mine. And so we have come to the agreement that, like, especially on very stressful weeks, I know that I will self-pleasure during the week, and the weekends, especially the weekend mornings, are for us. So another example of an agreement.
Yeah,
that works.
A great agreement.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell my wife and be like, this is a bid for a connection.
Exactly.
It's a good pitch.
Because what happens is that because there is non-sexual touch is not cultivated in most long-term relationships, especially in the US, I see that touch only happens when sex is initiated. And so because you associate touch with sexual initiation, a lot of women freeze up when their partners hug them or try to touch them because they think that it needs to lead to sex. And so when you understand that it is a bid for connection, you can loosen up and be like, hey, I'm not in the mood for that, but I can give you a hug or, whatever else is on your sexual menu.
When should a couple see a sexologist?
I would love to say that just for sexual education, whenever you have the time for it, would already be super helpful. But frankly, people come really only when there's a true pain point in their relationship. And only you will know when that is. But do not let the resentment build too far where you arrive in a very strained situation. Like, try to be as preemptive about it as you possibly can. Because the good news is that this isn't endless therapy. Yeah. Like, there is a beginning, middle, and end to it. That's the beauty of sex coaching. Sex therapy also has, the ending, but therapy can be longer. And so when you come in with an objective, you're able to work through it and you graduate and you move forward. And if you ever need to come back to solve something else, great.
So this will lead to my next bro question, because I bet everyone asks you, like, well, what's the healthy number to have?
Oh,
Is there a healthy number?
I hate that
Yeah,
question,
I know, but
obviously.
that's why I wanted to tee it up.
So the research says that up to once a week is where both couples feel happy, is where both people feel happy in the relationship. But more than once a week generally has no additional benefits, so to speak, to happiness. Sexless marriages are considered marriages that have sex less than 10 times per year. So less than monthly. Those are the numbers. Now, what matters is if you're having that sex worth wanting, if you're enjoying sex. And you will go through phases where sex is not a priority, and that's totally okay. As long as you agree with each other that once that stressful phase in your life passes, you're going to meet each other again.
So like if you're a founder or CEO and having a kid, like you want to have pretty active conversations.
I think
right?
it's so important for you to be like, hey, for the next few months or X amount of time, like I do not even have the headspace to think about sex. Is that okay? Got it. Okay. And then, but when this passes, let's work on this together. Because then you confirm to each other, like, you are important to me. Our sex life is important to me too.
Yeah.
And I see you. I'm not fully rejecting you because I don't care anymore.
That's great. And then one of my last questions is like, what is your biggest advice to give someone that wants to build a business in the wellness space?
I think one of my main problems with people who build in the space is really just thinking about making a quick buck. And you see that very much in the supplements arena. It really is about wanting to improve someone's life from a very genuine, authentic place that isn't, there's a lot of predatory marketing out there of like, if you take this or if you do that, it will resolve all of your sexual or relationship problems and or your health problems. And that's not true. So don't subscribe to the predatory marketing and think about what are the problems that you really want to solve, that you're truly curious about. And also, I just want to say, not everybody needs to be a founder, because you see so many companies pop in and they're like doing the same thing that another company does. And sometimes it would probably behoove you to join a very strong team and learn with them and add value to that company instead of starting your own. So those are the two different things that I would recommend people to think about.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being on.
Thank you for inviting me. I love this. This is so fun.
I'm excited about my cards.
Yeah. Well, it leads to happy endings.
Well, thank you.